That is a wrap on another NHL trade deadline. As we all expected, it wasn't the most exciting trade deadline ever, as a lot of the big name players that were available and on most trade boards had already been traded in the days or weeks leading up to today. So if you're new to the channel and you want to hear my thoughts on any of the trades that happened prior to today, you can see previous videos on the channel. We covered pretty much everything, and we have quite a bit more to cover in this video. So let's not waste any more time and go ahead and get started. The Washington Capitals sent forward Evgeny Kuznetsov to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for a 2025 third-round draft pick. The Capitals are retaining 50% of Kuznetsov's cap hit, so he's on the books for the Hurricanes at $3.9 million, and he does have 1 year left on that deal following this season. Kuznetsov just recently finished up in the player assistance program. He was waived by the Washington Capitals and sent down to the American Hockey League. Considering the trajectory that Kuznetsov's career has been on over these last couple of seasons, and the fact that he had a $7.8 million cap hit prior to the salary retention, had a year left on the deal following this season, I think if you're the Capitals, you have to be pretty happy with the fact that you're getting a third-round draft pick back for this player. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, they had a clear need at the center position. The market for centers pretty thin at this year's trade deadline, especially considering the fact that we've already seen guys like Sean Monahan and Elias Lindholm dealt. I feel like Kuznetsov at $3.9 mil and only having to give up a third-round draft pick is a decent bet for the Hurricanes. There isn't a ton of risk involved here. I definitely have my doubts on if Kuznetsov can get back to being a high-end top six center. There is certainly some upside here. Kuznetsov is a skilled player. He possesses fantastic playmaking ability as well. There is a lot of knocks on Kuznetsov's game. However, he is not good defensively whatsoever. His work ethic has came into question in the past. A lot of times it looked like he was just very lackadaisical out there, not really a guy known to go to the dirty areas. I feel like it goes without saying, but it seems Kuznetsov definitely needed a change of scenery at this point, and if he's got everything figured out off the ice and he's ready to just focus on playing hockey, I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that he could revive his career in Carolina. Next up, the Buffalo Sabres have traded a captain, or I guess former captain, now Kyle Okso, to the Florida Panthers in exchange for defenseman Kalle Salin and a conditional 2024 7th-round draft pick. The condition on that 7th-round draft pick is it will become a 5th-round draft pick in 2024 if the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup this year. There's probably a lot of people wondering why would the Buffalo Sabres trade their captain for this little of a return. The answer to that question is pretty simple. It was reported that the Buffalo Sabres went to Kyle Okso, asked him if he wanted to be traded to a contender, go somewhere where he has a chance to win, and apparently the only team he wanted to go to was Florida. So Buffalo made that happen. They did right by their captain. In my opinion, this is a really nice ad for the Florida Panthers. At 35 years old, Okso still a solid bottom six winger. Pretty slow at this point in his career, but he's a very smart player, has 12 goals in 61 games, plays a very strong defensive game. Obviously a lot of intangibles as well, coming from a team that he was the captain of. This is a guy that's going to be a solid presence in the locker room, and he's not somebody you have to worry about, coming in and disrupting the chemistry of the team. It should be a pretty seamless fit here. Moving along to the next trade, the Anaheim Ducks have acquired forward Ben Myers from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for a 2024 5th-round draft pick. Myers is 25 years old. He was a finalist for the Hobey Baker back in 2022. He put up 41 points in 34 games for the University of Minnesota. He's been a pretty productive player at the American Hockey League level over these last couple of seasons. In all reality, especially after all of the moves that Colorado made in these last couple of days, this is a guy that just wasn't going to see minutes in the NHL on this Avs team. So now Myers gets the opportunity to go to a team in Anaheim where he may be able to carve himself out a role at the NHL level. Obviously, no guarantee that happens, but the Ducks only gave up a 5th-round draft pick here. I think it's a decent gamble for them. Next up, the New York Rangers have acquired right-shot defenseman Chad Ruhwedel from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for a 2027 4th-round draft pick. Chad Ruhwedel has a cap hit of just $800K, and he will be a UFA at the end of the season. Ruhwedel is a depth defenseman, solid number 6, number 7 option. Probably not somebody who's going to be in the Rangers' everyday lineup, especially considering how stacked the Rangers' right side is with the leg likes of Adam Fox, Jacob Trouba, and Braden Schneider. Never a bad idea to add some more depth though. Ruhwedel provides them with some injury insurance. He's a guy that you know you can count on to step into the lineup and provide you with solid bottom pairing minutes. Moving along now to the next trade, in my opinion, one of the bigger additions of the entire day, the Winnipeg Jets have acquired forward Tyler Toffoli from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a second-round draft pick in 2025 and a third-round draft pick in 2024. The New Jersey Devils are also retaining 50% of Tyler Toffoli's cap hit, so the Jets are getting a legit top 6 forward who already has 26 goals this season at a cap hit of just a little over $2.1 million, and they didn't even have to give up a first-round draft pick. This is a fantastic deal for the Jets in my eyes. You add Tyler Toffoli to a forward group that, in my opinion, even before this trade was already one of the deeper forward groups in the league, and they look even scarier now with the addition of Tyler Toffoli. With Gabe Vilardi out of the lineup, I think Toffoli should slot in perfectly right on that first line as the right wing, playing with Scheifele and Kyle Connor. This is a big time add for the Winnipeg Jets, and I think we really have to give credit to Kevin Cheveldayoff, who over the last calendar year has made some really good trades. Going back to last year's trade deadline, the Nino Niederreiter pickup has been really solid for Winnipeg. The Jets obviously did really well in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Sean Monahan has been great for the Jets so far, and now you also add Tyler Toffoli for what in my opinion is a very fair price. Hats off to Cheveldayoff. I think he's done a fantastic job over the last year retooling this Jets team. Next up, the Nashville Predators acquire winger Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a 2024 sixth-round draft pick. There is no salary retention as part of this deal, so Nashville is taking on the full $5.3 million cap hit of Zucker. Honestly, really surprised that a sixth-round draft pick is all Arizona was able to land here. Of course, the fact that they didn't retain any salary probably played a massive part in the lackluster return. Sure, his finishing has fell off quite a bit this season with just 9 goals in 51 games, but prior to this season, Zucker is a guy that has consistently scored at around a 20-goal pace. He has 6 20-plus goal seasons under his belt, including 27 goals last year with the Penguins. For a 6th-round draft pick, I really don't think you can go wrong here for the Predators. Moving along now to the next trade, the Detroit Red Wings sent forward Klim Coston to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for defenseman Radim Simek and a 2024 7th-round draft pick. This deal really just screams cap dump. Klim Coston has a cap hit of $2 million and is signed at that number through next season, will be an RFA upon expiry. Just hasn't worked out in Detroit, has dealt with some injuries this season, just 3 goals and 4 points in 33 games, playing limited minutes. He's found himself on the outside of the Red Wings lineup as a healthy scratch pretty consistently. It makes sense that they would want to get out from under this contract. Coston now gets the opportunity to go to a team in San Jose where he's likely going to be playing pretty consistent NHL minutes. He's only 24 years old, could end up being a mainstay in the Sharks' bottom 6. Next up, the Boston Bruins have acquired forward Pat Maroon from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a conditional 2026 6th-round draft pick and 22-year-old undrafted forward Luke Toporowski. The condition on the 6th-round pick is that the Minnesota Wild will only receive the pick if Pat Maroon plays in 1 or more playoff games this year with the Bruins. I believe Maroon is still a few weeks away from returning from surgery, but you have to imagine he will get into at least 1 playoff game for the Bruins if he's healthy, or they wouldn't have traded for him. Maroon is a big, mean, physical depth forward, very difficult to play against, perfect fit for a team like the Boston Bruins. He's probably not going to play anything more than 4th-line minutes. Maroon is also one of those players that bring a lot of value off the ice in the locker room. He's battle-tested. He's played an absurd amount of playoff games in these later years of his career. He went to 4 straight Stanley Cup finals. One was with the St. Louis Blues in 2019, and then followed that up with 3 straight finals appearances with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and obviously Maroon won 3 out of those 4 Stanley Cups. Next up, we have a 1-for-1 swap between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Nashville Predators. Denis Gurianov will head to Philadelphia and Wade Allison to Nashville. Both 26-year-old forwards who have been playing the majority of this season in the American Hockey League. Gurianov has shown more than Allison at the NHL level in terms of what he's able to produce offensively. Gurianov is a speedy winger. He's got some skill, but just really hasn't been able to put it all together. He's been inconsistent for the most part throughout his career when he has played in the NHL. He's a streaky player. We'll see if a change of scenery can do anything for either of these guys. Moving along now to the next trade, the New Jersey Devils have finally got a goalie as they have acquired Jake Allen from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a conditional 3rd-round draft pick. The Montreal Canadiens are retaining 50% of Jake Allen's cap hit, so so he'll be on the books for New Jersey at just 1.925 mil, and they will have him at that number through next season as well. The condition on the third round draft pick going to Montreal here is it will become a second round draft pick in 2025 if Allen plays in 40 or more games during the 2024-25 season, and if Allen's club at the time, whether it's New Jersey or another team, qualifies for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. I've said this before, I'll say it again, I think it's probably too little too late when it comes to making the playoffs this season for the New Jersey Devils. I think they waited way too long to address their goaltending situation, but the important thing when it comes to this trade is obviously the fact that Jake Allen has one more year left on his deal following this season, so they're going to have an established goaltender who has proven to do well on some not good teams at a very cheap cap hit. Jake Allen immediately becomes the best option that the New Jersey Devils have now in net. Is he going to be, a Vezina Trophy candidate for them? I don't think anyone's expecting that, but that's not what the New Jersey Devils need. They just need somebody to come in and at the very least give them, league average goaltending. And based off of what we've seen from Allen over these last few seasons in Montreal, I think it's a pretty safe bet that he should be able to provide that for New Jersey. Next up, the Philadelphia Flyers acquired defenseman Erik Johnson from the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for a 2024 fourth round draft pick. Erik Johnson has a cap of $3.25 million and will be a UFA at the end of this season. Johnson's best years in the NHL are definitely well behind him, doesn't provide a whole lot of offense at this point. His defensive analytics have definitely taken a hit this season in Buffalo. Erik Johnson is a depth defenseman at this point in his career, probably not someone you want playing top 4 minutes, but he will help Philly at least replenish the right side a little bit after trading Sean Walker to the Avalanche. Moving along now to the next trade, the Boston Bruins acquire right shot defenseman Andrew Peeke from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for defenseman Jacob Zaboral and a 2027 third round draft pick. A little bit surprised by this one. Andrew Peeke has a cap hit of $2.75 million and is signed at that number for 2 more seasons. Following this year, he will be a UFA in the summer of 2026. It was reported by, I believe, Frank Saravalli that if Peeke wasn't traded at this year's deadline, he would likely be bought out in the summer. So the fact that Columbus was able to unload this contract and also get a third round draft pick is pretty surprising to me. Boston must think they can get something more out of Andrew Peeke than Columbus has been able to get out of him this season. He is only 25 years old and again does have 2 more seasons on his contract following this year, so maybe Boston views him as, a long-term option as a bottom pair right shot defenseman. Next up, the Arizona Coyotes sent right shot defenseman Matt Dumba to the Tampa Bay Lightning along with a 7th round draft pick in 2025 in exchange for a 5th rounder in 2027. No salary retention here. Tampa is taking on the full $3.9 million cap hit of Matt Dumba. Easy for them to swallow with Sergachev on LTIR. Not really surprised at all by the low cost Tampa had to pay to land Matt Dumba here. It was reported that originally Arizona was asking for a first round draft pick for Matt Dumba, and there was just no way they were going to get that. Dumba's game has completely fell off of a cliff these last couple of seasons. He has not been good this year in Arizona. At his peak, Matt Dumba was a very good top 4 offensive defenseman, but injuries have definitely taken a toll on his career at this point. Maybe going to a team like Tampa Bay, playing around a lot of very talented players like Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, and Hedman could help him find his offensive game, but to be honest, I wouldn't expect much here if I was a Bolts fan. Next up, the New York Rangers have acquired centerman Jack Roslovic from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for a conditional 4th round draft pick that will become a 3rd if the Rangers reach the Stanley Cup Finals. Certainly not a big name like Frank Vatrano or Pavel Buchnevich. I know a lot of Rangers fans were hoping to land one of the two there, but Roslovic is a skilled forward, not somebody with the most complete 200-foot game, but he's a strong skater, good playmaking abilities, and I am really curious to see if the Rangers plan on using Roslovic on the wing and playing him in the top 6, because at the center position, you obviously have Zibanejad and Trocheck, and they already acquired Wenberg, who I think is going to be the number 3 center. In my opinion, Roslovic's skill set and his playstyle doesn't really fit well as a number 4 center, so I think in all likelihood, we're going to see him on the wing with the Rangers. For the cost of acquisition, just a conditional 4th, I don't think this is a bad bet by the Rangers at all. Moving along now to the next trade, the Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired forward Connor Dewar from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a 2026 4th round draft pick. Connor Dewar is 24 years old. He was a 3rd rounder by the Wild back in 2018. A cap hit of just $800K this season, and he will be an RFA at the end of the season, so the Leafs will be able to retain his rights. Cheap depth is very valuable for a team as cap strapped as the Maple Leafs, so I think this is a pretty solid addition. Connor Dewar is a bottom 6 forward who has pretty strong defensive impacts, has also chipped in 10 goals this season for the Wild, and most importantly, importantly, he kills penalties, and he does it pretty well. And I mean, everybody knew that the Leafs were going to be in the market for somebody who can kill penalties. In my opinion, this could turn out to be a sneaky good deadline addition by the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially if they end up keeping Connor Dewar beyond this season, which you have to imagine they will. Next up, the Winnipeg Jets and New Jersey Devils decided to do business together once again. After the Ttley trade, the Winnipeg Jets acquired defenseman Colin Miller from the Devils in exchange for a 2026 fourth-round draft pick. At 31 years old, Colin Miller has become quite the journeyman in the NHL. The Winnipeg Jets will be the 6th NHL team he suits up for if he ends up playing a game for them, which you have to imagine he will, and I believe the 7th organization he's been a part of, because he was drafted by the Kings but never played a game for them. Miller adds some depth to the Winnipeg Jets right side. Can't imagine he's going to be an everyday defenseman for them, but he's injury insurance. He is a reliable guy at this point in Miller's career. He's not somebody who's going to play big minutes in a team's top 4 or get a whole lot of time on special teams, but he still does pretty well playing limited bottom pairing minutes at even strength. Moving along now, the New Jersey Devils and San Jose Sharks made a 1-for-1 swap of goaltenders. Kaapo Kähkönen has been sent to the Devils in exchange for Vitek Vanacek. Solid move here by the Devils, in my opinion. Vanacek obviously having a miserable season. Kaapo Kähkönen not much better, but you have to imagine he's not a guy the Devils are going to rely upon a ton to start a bunch of games down the stretch. I think the biggest thing here for the Devils is getting out from the Vanacek contract, getting some more cap flexibility heading into next season. Vanacek has a cap hit of $3.4 million, is signed at that number through next season, while Kaapo Kähkönen is a UFA at the end of this year. And for the Sharks, you're really just betting on Vitek Vanacek bouncing back, regaining his form, rebuilding his value a little bit, and then maybe looking to flip him next season when he only has 1 year left on his deal. Just saw additional information on Twitter when it comes to this trade that the Sharks are also receiving a 7th round draft pick along with Vitek Vanacek as part of this trade. Moving along now, we have another San Jose Sharks trade. This one saw them sending defenseman Nikita Okso to the Calgary Flames in exchange for a conditional 2024 5th round draft pick. Can't seem to find the condition anywhere. Sort of surprised by this trade. I actually think Nikita Okso has shown decent upside playing bottom pairing minutes this season for the San Jose Sharks. He's only 23 years old. I actually think this is a pretty decent pickup here for the Calgary Flames, especially considering the fact that they only gave up a conditional 5th. Again, can't find the condition anywhere, but can't imagine it's anything too crazy. And now finally finishing out the video with the last trade that we have to break down. Another deal involving the San Jose Sharks. This one was a buzzer beater. News broke of this trade basically right at the deadline, and it is a trade that made a lot of people upset. The Vegas Golden Knights have acquired Tomas Hertl from the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are retaining 17% of Hertl's cap hit. The Golden Knights also land 2 third-round draft picks as part of this deal, one in 2025, the other in 2027. In exchange, the San Jose Sharks will receive prospect David Edstrom, who was Vegas' first-round draft pick from the most recent NHL draft, and also a 2025 first-round pick. So Vegas trading their 2025 first-rounder as part of this deal means Calgary will get Vegas' 2026 first-rounder as part of the Noah Hanifin deal. Absolutely insane. This came completely out of left field. There really wasn't much talk whatsoever surrounding Tomas Hertl and him as a potential trade candidate, especially not for a team like the Vegas Golden Knights. It was rumored that they were in the market for a winger. They were in on Gensel apparently, and on Toffoli. Didn't end up getting those guys, but they did end up surprising everybody and landing Tomas Hertl. So many different factors to consider when breaking down this deal, one of which is the fact that obviously Hertl is not a rental. He's not anything close to a rental. His contract will not expire until the summer of 2030. Hertl's previous cap hit was around $8.137 million. Again, San Jose is retaining 17% of that cap hit, which is shocking to me. I know the San Jose Sharks don't plan on being competitive for quite some time, but helping out Vegas and retaining salary for 6 more years on a player like Hertl is pretty insane. This also means that the Sharks have used up all 3 of their salary retention spots already for next season, as they're still retaining salary on Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson on top of Hertl here. So that's definitely not ideal when it comes to, them being sellers around next year's trade deadline. Obviously, salary retention plays a big part in trades around this time of year. That being said, I like this trade for the San Jose Sharks, even with the salary retention. This is a team that is still in the very early stages of a rebuild. You're getting out from under a massive contract, a guy that's already 30 years old. The late years of this contract for Hertl probably aren't going to look very good. You get 2 premium assets in return. David Edstrom, like I said, a first rounder by Vegas in the most recent NHL draft. He has 17 points in 42 games this season for Frölunda in the Swedish Hockey League. Projects as a solid 2-way center. And then, of course, you get the 2025 first rounder as well. So 2 premium assets there. This trade was really surprising and, a bit unconventional when it comes to, retaining that much salary on someone who has so many years left on their deal. But I think San Jose did well here, and in my opinion, you have to respect Mike Greer's commitment to completely tearing it down in San Jose and building towards the future, stockpiling picks and prospects and young players. So those are my thoughts on the return for the Sharks. Now let's talk about this deal from the Vegas side of things. I'm curious to see if they're going to use Ruhwedel at center or the wing. If they decide to use him at center, I mean, a 1-2-3 down the middle of Eichel, Ruhwedel, and William Karlsson is insane. Ruhwedel's numbers have definitely dipped a little bit over these last 2 seasons, but I mean, he's been playing on a brutal San Jose Sharks team. Ruhwedel is a legit top 6 center, in my opinion, definitely still capable of scoring at around a point per game pace, especially with all the talent that's going to be around him in Vegas. He's consistently been a very solid two-way centerman throughout the majority of his career. He does a little bit of everything. He can play in all situations, and whether the Golden Knights plan on using him at center or on the wing, he makes this team better. Now, Ruhwedel is currently injured, but the expectation is he will play before the regular season finishes up. This team, on paper, when fully healthy, is just absolutely absurd. It's unknown whether Mark Stone will be available for the playoffs. GM Kelly McCrimmon came out and said it's impossible to know what the timeline's like for a lacerated spleen, but if Mark Stone does come off LTIR for the playoffs and is able to play, for all of you counting, Vegas will be about $20 million over the cap. One thing I can definitely appreciate about Vegas is that there is never a dull moment, and you kind of got to respect the fact at this point that they just continue to commit to going all in year after year and continue to go after the biggest name players available. When you look at what they've done with all of their first round draft picks since becoming a team, it's pretty insane, whether they traded the pick before making it or drafted a prospect with the first round pick and then ended up trading them. The Golden Knights really are just out here playing franchise mode, and I wish more NHL teams would do these kinds of things and not be so attached to prospects and draft picks, because there's so much uncertainty when it comes to prospects and draft picks. There's not much uncertainty when it comes to trading for established NHL players that you have a massive sample size of, they can help you win, and it's a strategy that has proved to work for Vegas so far. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. There will come a day where all this catches up to them and they have, no young assets left and all their core is aging and past their prime, and I'm sure all of you Vegas haters are going to love that, but I can confidently say, looking at this roster, that day is probably not going to come for quite some time. So that is going to wrap up my review of the 2024 NHL trade deadline. I do apologize if I missed some minor details about some of these trades. It's hard to keep up with everything. Details sometimes come out, hours apart for certain trades. I also decided to leave off some minor trades involving, 7th round draft picks and minor league players and things like that. But in this video, I did my best to cover all of the notable trades that took place today. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts, especially if your favorite team made a splash today. Let me know how you're feeling down below in the comments. I'll tell you how I'm feeling. Tired. It has been an insane month of March so far. I appreciate all of the support you guys have been showing on the videos. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to leave it a like. It definitely helps out the videos a ton, and it's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.